brake torque.
All right, George is back, and if you guys can see, look at that shirt.
Yep.
Long roof box life.
Yeah, I'd like to thank AverageT.com. He especially made the shirt, hoodie for me. It Average-T when you look it up online. Guy does phenomenal work. Very quick response. Very communicative also. I got lots of images, pre-stuff, everything for the lettering and everything. He did a phenomenal job.
That's pretty cool. Not many of us can say we have our actual car on our shirt, so that's pretty bad. That's
These
pretty
are
awesome.
photographs of my wheels.
That's awesome.
So,
I see the crackers down here.
Mm-hmm. They're dirty. Everything's dirty except my sweatshirt.
And look like they made it onto the sweatshirt.
Yeah, he's even got the look, dude. The spinners are even in there.
That's pretty sweet.
So.
All right, George. So we're back. We're with the wagon.
Yep.
Well, let's get a little history of the wagon. So tell us about it. What year is it? What make?
It's a 1984 Caprice Estate. It was originally owned by a woman and her husband here in town. They traded the car in. It was traded in at a dealership. Dealership resold the car to a church. The church had the car for a while. They hauled around nuns in this thing all the time. It was kind of fun. And then when the church decided to sell it about 20 years ago, a friend of mine purchased the car with the money I gave him to purchase his car. And he showed up in this car, and I wanted it immediately. So the deal was struck at the time when he was ready to sell. I was the buyer. Eventually, 10 years ago, I was able to buy the car for $600.
Wow.
It had no brakes. It leaked oil. It smoked. It's got almost 300,000 miles on it. So it's been around the world. I've put a lot of money and a lot of work into it. I've done suspension, motor, tranny, rear end, fuel tank, interior work. Last thing on the list is the paint job because it's in dire need. The past couple of years, some stuff has came up. Bought Janet's Malibu. That was the paint job money the first year. This year, the paint job money went to the new motor that's in the car. So priorities, right? Had to do the rear end, exhaust, everything. It was a lot. It was a lot for me.
Yeah, I get that. All right, so you've owned this car for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
10 years. So when you got it, what motor and transmission was in it?
It had a 305 small block, electronic 4-barrel Rochester, a 700 R4 with 293 gears in the rear end. Right now it's got 373s. I put that in. The motor's a 400 small block now, bored 30 over, so it's 406 cubic inches. It's got Dart SHP heads, Hedman headers, Lunati bootlegger cam, Edelbrock Performer air gap intake, Holly Sniper fuel injection, Comp Cam 152, full roller rocker, stainless, full roller motor now, so no crazy special oils anymore.
So what inspired the move from the 305 to jump up to the 400 small block?
Well, I had the 400 and it had low miles on it. I bought a 73 Impala police car way 20 years ago, before I even bought my Monte Carlo from Mr. Herzberg, who's who I bought the wagon from. I bought a 73 Impala police car that had super low miles on it. It had a good motor. The car was rotten to death. I had another Monte Carlo before that Monte Carlo was in rough shape, so I was looking for a shell when I bought that Monte Carlo. So this car, it had a lot of miles on it. Like I said, it was smoking. It started to develop a mystery antifreeze leak that I couldn't find. It wasn't a head gasket. It ended up being a cracked cylinder head. When I got the motor out and I pulled the exhaust manifolds off. They were actually 2 cylinders that were calcified from antifreeze. So it was just old age and tired. So I put the 400 in. I did the best I could to keep all the emissions equipment on it at first and run with the regular Rochester carburetor, but I couldn't get a chip for the computer to understand it was at a 400 and not a 305 anymore. So the timing curve was all wrong. Fuel mixture settings were all wrong. So I had to slowly peel that stuff out and get away from it. So the motor just kind of evolved from there. Once I put the 400 in, I blew the transmission up in 2 days because it couldn't handle it, the torque from the 400. So it had a new transmission put in it then. That transmission lasted about a year. We have no idea why it blew up, but it did, and we built another one. So it's on its 3rd transmission now. The transmission that I originally let go was the original transmission with 250 something, 60,000 miles on it. So I drive my cars. I drive it all year round, 24/7. Whenever it needs to go somewhere, I take it out. In the wintertime, it's got snow tires. On the summertime, it's got mags. So.
All right. And this past winter, you pulled the motor and you rebuilt it. Why?
Well, when you took me out to Gateway for Midnight Madness, I started having. I ran a 15.8 in the quarter mile on my first pass. The car started running real bad that night. I was getting higher and higher ETs on the car. It went all downhill from there. It was real bad by the end of the night. The next morning, the car wouldn't start. And when the car wouldn't start, I put a new ignition coil on it. And then, because that's what was wrong with the car the night before, was the ignition coil was burning up. So I put a new coil on it. And then all of a sudden, with the new coil, I stopped having a bunch of RF problems, and the fuel injection started tuning itself very well, very quickly. So I had to compensate with the ignition system, and I kept trying to time the motor, and I couldn't get any timing into it. So I started looking at my slip, and I realized that at about the 8th mile mark, the car just kind of fell on its face. After the 8th mile, it didn't have enough performance, so I started looking into more on the motor. I had a cam shaft that was going flat, and I talked to some people, so it was time for a new cam. They said, well, with the heads you got, it won't matter what cam you put in it, so it's time to put on a set of cylinder heads to match the cam. It has flat top pistons in it. I bumped the compression up from 8.5 to 1 to 10 to 1, and in the process of doing that, I actually didn't go far enough with the cam and the heads to match the compression ratio. So I had to run the motor rich, and I had to run the timing retarded. The motor was very slow for what it was supposed to do. Not knowing that I didn't have enough compression release, the motor was detonating because the cam was just too small and the heads were too small. So that constituted the purchase of heads and a cam, and I went full roller this time. I'm not doing flat tappets ever again in my life. I learned my lesson on that. Trust me, folks, it's really worth it. You can buy a couple of cams and a couple of sets of lifters, or you can put a roller set in it and never mess with it again. So, and the oil's cheaper. The oil is about $3 a quart cheaper. I was running Royal Purple HPS, which was for a flat tappet cam and flat tappet lifter set. Now I can just run regular Royal Purple synthetic. So the oil's about $3 a quart cheaper. So with a 9-quart pan, that makes a difference.
Definitely. What suspension do you have on here?
Factory. It's all factory suspension, regular. I resprung the car because the springs were broke when I got it. It was riding pretty low. So I got a pair of 94 to 96 Impala SS coils from Moog, and I cut 3/4 of a coil off of them to put them in here to get the ride height right, because the original spring just did not sag. There wasn't enough weight in the front end of the car. The back end of the car was fine. It's got 77 Caprice wagon springs on it, which are the highest spring rate I could find, and try not to jack the car up too high. I do run air shocks. I love air shocks to compensate. So if I want to make it look 80s traditional with the S end in the air, I can do that.
And what's the tire and wheel setup?
It's a 15 by 7 Krager SS mag, standard rim with a 235 60-15 on the front, and then the back is a 15 by 10 Krager SS mag. It's a reverse rim with a 295 50-15 BF Goodrich radial TAs. I run radial TAs. That's all I've ran since I switched to them. I used to run Kelly Chargers. Kelly didn't make a tire big enough, and they actually started blistering out long before their time. So I went to BF Goodrich, and I've never had a problem since. And they're a little softer; they get better traction.
All right. And in the short time I've known you, you've done a lot of changes to the wagon.
Mm-hmm.
So what's next? What happens next for the wagon? Or is there a next for the wagon?
Next for the wagon is probably I'm going to try to put posi in it because it doesn't have posi. It's still an open rear end. The motor hits so hard though that you almost can't tell that it's not posi. It just breaks both back tires loose every time. And then I got some really nice valve covers that you're going to see probably if he's going to throw a picture up right about now over here. And I bought some really nice ProForm valve covers, and they will not work with the AC system, air conditioning system that I'm running. So I bought a new accessory drive system for the front of the motor that's going to change my old pancake style nasty noisy GM compressor over to a Sandin. I think it's Sandin 508 is what I'm going to put on the other side, and it's swapping my alternator and everything to the opposite sides of the motor. So it's going to clean the engine bay up, open the motor up a little bit more of the chrome shine through. So, and then yeah, that's going to be about it. And then the next thing after that is the frame is starting to get a little soft. I'm either going to frame it or replace it. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure. So it might be one of the last few years for the wagon to be on the road. It might be get turned into a rolling chassis if I find something better.
All right. And you don't see a lot of wagons. So what is it about wagons that what was it about this car that just drew you to it?
Well, I bought my first wagon when I was about 21. It was a 86 Caprice Estate, and it was gold with wood grain, and it was a running gag that it was my golden Woody. So I bought the car. I had a dually pickup truck, and I had a Great Dane. So I bought the first wagon to take my Great Dane with me because she loved to lock the doors on the dually pickup truck. It was too easy. It was an old 78 crew cab dually. She'd ride in the back seat. So I bought a wagon for her to ride around in, and that was my first one. This is my fifth now. My fifth Caprice wagon. I've had an 86. That was my first one, an 87. And then I had this 84. And then I had an 81 Oldsmobile Oldsmobile Custom Cruiser that was given to me, and I had another 87. I had two 87s. I didn't like the 87s.
You're definitely Station Wagon George. You've earned that name.
Right. I used to be Monte Carlo George because I've owned more Monte Carlos than I've owned more Monte Carlos than I have station wagons. So I did 2 G-body Monte Carlos. They were problematic. So I typically ran with DeLorean's Dynasty of the 73 to 77 Monte Carlos. I got 2 73s right now. I had a 74. That was my first one. I had a 75, 76, and a 77. So
why don't you make the most of, or the best of both worlds and create a Monte Carlo wagon?
It's actually been thought of. I thought about that, but the 73 to 77 Monte Carlos, they don't interchange. There's not a medium car between them, like a Malibu. I guess you could use a Malibu wagon and try to make it a Monte Carlo, but man, that's way over my head. I thought about getting a G-body wagon, like a 78 to 84, I think it is the last year for the wagon in the Malibus, and then putting a Monte Carlo front clip on it and changing the rear fender wells over to Monte Carlo fender wells, just for bigger tires. Because I noticed that about the Malibus, you either have them tubbed or you don't have big tires. So I like my tires to stick out and be flush, so it would have to have a Monte Carlo fender well. But I've thought about it. I've thought about a lot of other cars. I really like the way the Caprice from 77 to 90 is laid out, as far as rolling down the windows. The back window rolls down into the tailgate. The tailgate opens two different ways. It's got third row seating or a trunk, depending on which design it was. The back windows and the doors roll down. The G-body 4 doors, they don't roll down in the back doors. So they got little wing windows. And I just, if you got some people with you and you're cruising, I can haul 8 people in this car and everybody's comfortable. But you really got to have a window to roll down if it's a nice day, so you get a 60-degree day. So I kind of get stuck with the features more than the look.
All right.
If that makes any sense.
All right. What's your favorite thing about the wagon?
Favorite thing? It's utilitarian. I can do anything I want. If I want to go camping, I got my own camper. I got a tent. I can blow up a mattress in there, sleep comfortably. Don't have to fight with worms or mosquitoes. Or if I want to haul, if I got to move, I can load this thing down. It hauls a lot, believe it or not, with the back seat folded down. You can haul 4x8 sheets of plywood stacked to the ceiling. It'll do a lot, but and they're comfortable. I drive a truck all day. I don't want to drive a truck on my time off. That's why I haven't built a Suburban. But so I got a car. It's like the reverse mullet. It's party in the front, business in the back.